Hi, I'm Dr. Henry Black, Clinical Professor of Internal Medicine at the New York University School of Medicine in the Center for the Prevention of Cardiovascular Disease and President of the American Society of Hypertension. This is award season in Hollywood, and although I'm not giving out Oscars or Obies or Emmys or anything else, I'd like to talk about the two trials published in 2008 that I think were the most important and impactful. And they would be HYVET, which was a study of people over the age of 80, and ACCOMPLISH, which directly looked at what should be the second drug in our armamentarium when we're using two drugs. HYVET filled in the last gap, in my opinion, that we really hadn't studied. That is, do we get benefit in people over the age of 80, where many, many hypertensives are right now, or not? Some early meta-analyses or some smaller trials have suggested that there was no benefit. And this is a major issue since as our population ages, as our arteries stiffen, as our systolic pressure rises, and if we live long enough, all of us will have an elevated blood pressure. And yet we really didn't have solid data on whether we should be treating these individuals, especially with drugs. HYVET was planned originally to have both an elevation of systolic and diastolic pressure, but early on they revised it so people with elevated systolics, that is more than 160, regardless of diastolic pressure, could be enrolled. So there were a large number of people with what we would call isolated systolic hypertension. They began therapy with an ACE inhibitor or a diuretic, and then they combined them. This was perindopril or indapamide, and this study was stopped quite early because the results were unequivocal. There was a dramatic reduction in stroke in particular, in heart failure as well as coronary disease, putting to bed, in my opinion, whether or not older people benefit. They clearly do. ACCOMPLISH was another study which was a comparison of two different regimens with a superiority outcome, and which clearly showed what they planned to show. What this was designed to be would take people with elevated systolic pressures, once again regardless of diastolic pressures, who were considered high risk based on prior cardiovascular disease, and then treat them with two fixed dose combinations. One that used an ACE inhibitor, benazepril, plus hydrochlorothiazide in modest doses to start with titrations upward very rapidly. And the second was the same ACE inhibitor, benazepril, with amlodipine, also starting at modest doses and titrating to goal. I was the chairman of the Data and Safety Monitoring Board, so we were unblinded with the results. We were very determined that the blood pressure would be as close to the same as we could. When you do some studies these days and you have to adjust and figure out how much the benefit or lack of benefit has to do with differences in blood pressure, it becomes a very important issue because it's very hard to necessarily adjust for that. Well, this study was stopped prematurely as well, about a year earlier than planned, with about 400 events fewer than had been planned for, although many were filled in later. What it turned out to be was there was a 20% reduction in the primary endpoint, a composite which included MI, stroke, heart failure, and interventions including surgery or PCI, percutaneous stent placement, in the group that got amlodipine plus the ACE inhibitor compared to the group that got the same ACE inhibitor plus hydrochlorothiazide. The blood pressures, I'm pleased to say, were virtually identical as measured in the office. There's an ambulatory blood pressure monitor study that's coming, probably going to be presented in May at the American Society of Hypertension, that will look at the ambulatory monitoring, and I don't know that data as yet. So here we have something that challenges the idea that it's all about the blood pressure, an idea that I had thought was the case, because here we have identical blood pressures, and one regimen, the ACE inhibitor calcium antagonist compared to the ACE inhibitor hydrochlorothiazide, was clearly superior. This has very important implications not only for the ACE CCB combination, but also for the angiotensin receptor plus CCB combination, much of which is now available. We would always think that a fixed dose combination would be good thing to take for adherence reasons. We're not sure about that. Certainly for copays, it's beneficial. For simplicity, it's beneficial. But now it looks as if this particular fixed dose combination has advantages with outcomes. So stay tuned. There's more to come about ACCOMPLISH, and I'm very much looking forward to those results. Thank you very much.